Welcome to Blending the Family, the podcast. Topics can range from dads hitting rock bottom, daughters watching their parents divorce, or even what is a good wine for couples to have while talking about finances. Here's your host, who really does have a face for podcasting, Tommy Maloney.
Yes, I do have a face for podcasting. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Blending the Family. I am your host, Tommy Maloney. Thank you, sharing, downloading, all those great things that you are doing with the podcast. Thank you. Today's episode, we have on the show Tonya Dalhaus. Nope, not making that name up. That is not a stage name. That is her real name. She's a former comedian, and right then and there, I was intrigued. We met at a Toastmasters event. We were both getting coffee. And I just happened to say, hey, what do you do? And she responded, hey, what do you do? We started talking, and she was telling me about some great stories about her being a comedian. And then I mentioned blending the family. She goes, oh, I can tell you how to unblend a family. And that's what we talk about. We talk about unblending a family, which just fascinating hearing the stories about her family as well as her businesses. She has one business called The Dating Agent. The other one, at the time of this podcast, is getting ready to launch, and that is called funnypeoplemeet.com. funnypeoplemeet.com. And to me, it's very interesting because as a creative person, there are times where you want to hang out with other creative people, and what Tonya is doing is creating a whole website designed for writers, people who want to create movies, even mimes. And that's all happening. Once again, funnypeoplemeet.com. We talk about the businesses. We talk about unblending the family, life on the road as a comedian. A lot. I was just sitting there amazed of all the things in her short time on this planet she has done. All right, before we get into the show, just want to a couple of mentions. Always email me, or you can email me at tommy@blendingthefamily.com. Check out the Facebook page at Blending the Families. That's S at the end, so Blending the Family with an S at the end. On the Facebook, the Twitter is still Blending Family. Once again, thanks for tuning in. We have on the show Tonya Dalhaus, the owner of the business Funny People Meet. funnypeoplemeet.com. Have a great day. It's raining in Colorado, and it's been raining a long, long time.
Are you recording right now?
Oh, yeah.
All right. So, my name is Tonya Dalhaus, and I'm a past stand-up comedian from the New England area.
How many years?
How many years?
How many years were you on stage?
I did it for about 6 years. Not full time. I also had to have a job at the same time.
And what was the dreaded job?
I sold advertising for TV, radio, and
that wasn't bad.
Also, I did it for the early days of RedShopper.com, which was similar to a Restaurants.com or today's Groupon.
Oh, okay.
It was the first Groupon. Pre-Groupon in Maine. Back where people didn't like using stuff on computers because computers get viruses, and that's very scary for
computers
Mainers.
Were evil back then.
Yeah, very evil.
But at least as a stand-up comedian, you didn't have, because there was a lot of your colleagues had those dreaded temp jobs that just dreaded. I mean, at least you had a fun. I mean, selling advertising. I always remember from Billy Crystal talking about in City Slickers how he sells air.
Yes, it is selling air.
Selling air.
It's amazing. It's like, here, there's this beautiful piece of air right here, and you can't visualize it, and you can't touch it.
Exactly.
And you can't see it, and we can't guarantee that it'll help your business, but I'd really like you to buy some anyway. Oh, and did I mention we don't have any ratings? Because I didn't work for a TV station that actually had ratings, because that would be too easy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I remember those days because I worked in small market, and I remember calling on the teddy bear company. What's that big teddy bear company? around Valentine's Day, they...
Stife?
No. What is it? Where you can customize your teddy bear.
Oh, that's one where you stuff them yourselves?
No,
Which I think is creepy,
yeah.
actually.
But I called on
them.
Build-A-Bear. Not Build-A-Bear. No. What is it?
Wasn't a Build-A-Bear?
No. It was the big... They're huge. You'll see them on, like, Valentine's Day. You see all their advertising. But I called on them to get some free product. And they said, well, we don't even see your station listed in Arbitron. I'm like, for those that don't know Arbitron, that's the evil numbers people. But I was like, well, we could, on a good day, the signal would drop into Nashville, and on a good day, we can drop into Knoxville. We were just smack dab in the middle of Tennessee, and they're like, no. It's like, bummer.
We're in Tennessee.
Cookeville, Tennessee.
Oh, my dad's in Friendsville.
Is it a friendly town?
Oh, Tennessee is very friendly.
Love Tennessee.
It is, and they got a Hooters. As long as you like Hooters and their fried pickles,
yeah.
You're good.
Love fried pickles. I would kid. Well, not really kid. I always thought Hooters had the best wings.
Wings is one of the things that they're known for, yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of the body parts they're known for, I should say.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Hooters.
6 years as a stand-up comedian.
Yes.
Did you ever sit down in those 6 years?
Yes, I did, actually. I did sit down. I laid down on occasion, too.
Was that part of a bit?
Sometimes, yeah.
No.
Yes, definitely is part of a bit.
Okay.
Not for any other reasons.
I have no idea where we're going with this, but
I know it's trying to get in a really bad turn for the.
It'll get worse as we keep going.
Believe me, it'll definitely get worse.
So 6 years, I guess both of these businesses. So Funny People Meet, and then the other one, the dating agent.
Yes.
All dealing with the world of dating.
They are dealing with helping people find love, or helping people find relationships, really.
Do we need another dating website?
We don't probably need another dating website, but we do need a website called Funny People Meet, which isn't really for dating. It's actually for helping people in the comic creative space come together and work on creative projects. So on that site, you will find comics, improvers, filmmakers, talent managers, clowns, performers, producers, directors, and anybody who's looking to do something creative. They can find each other and find similar types of funny personalities that they can work with to create whatever it is they want. And if that dating comes out of it, that's great too.
Wow, you've got a lot of things going on. Do you ever get any sleep?
Yes. My full name is Tonya. You got a lot of things going on, Dalhaus.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You do. All right, so let's talk about the Funny People Meet. Where did that... Was that something that... Because I could see a huge need for creatives.
Yes.
Especially... But with comedians, though, I mean, is there still some friction between... I mean, that's an ego-driven world.
It is, but the comics that at least I knew in Massachusetts, we would all get together to host open mics. We would get together to write jokes. I mean, we would literally have writing nights where we'd all get together, run jokes off each other, and do rip and reads to just help each other out. A lot of comics don't just do stand-up. They do improv. They do sketch comedy. They do public speaking. So they want to make films. So they're always trying to find other people to do fun stuff with. How this idea came out was I started the dating agent. I was trying to get into sort of the online business, and I went to an iDate conference out in California, which is for people going into sort of dating and app technology for dating. And I went out there and found out all about the online dating world, and everybody was talking about it taking a new shift into doing more niche dating sites because nobody can compete now with the eHarmonies and the Match.coms and all of those.
Right.
So now everybody's doing more niche sites for specific areas. And it's actually interesting to me how many have popped up for this whole Trump debacle. You now have, peoplefortrump.com, peopleagainsttrump.com, people in Canada for Americans to meet and marry and escape the US.com. There's all these sites that are, niche sites out there now for people who want to date within their sort of niche community. So I was looking at that, and then the other thing is most online dating sites have a 90% churn rate, meaning you constantly are trying to find 90% of your people go away within a matter of months, and you have to refill all those people because they meet somebody and they leave the site, or they decide it's not for them, or whatever it is. So a lot of these niche sites are trying to make it lifestyle sites so people have reasons to stay on the site even after they get into a relationship. Mm-hmm. So for example, there's an app called Bumble who's now created, you can either go on there to date, but you can also go on there to meet best friends. So they have a BFF feature where you can go on as a female or male and flip through and find other people to hang out with. So it's not just about dating.
Okay.
So when I came back, I had been thinking about that and what route to go in. And I was teaching improv, because I do teach improv as well. And people were coming up to me and being like, I want to form an improv group. Who do I talk to? And I'm like, I don't know, just go find some people that improv, I guess.
Right.
And I get these calls all the time, like, I want to do a film. Do you know any actors? I want to do improv. I need to find a group. I want to do sketch comedy. Who do you know that would want to do that with me? So I'm like, well, there's my niche. There's a need.
Right.
There's
Definitely.
a lot of people in that community that can fill a site. So that's what I decided to do, and it's a passion of mine. So.
And I have to ask, how do you monetize?
Oh, it's a membership site.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So they would pay monthly for the rest of their lives, because it's a lifestyle site.
Well, you have to. You have to. The rest of your life, yes.
Yes. So if you look
that.
at my drop-down list, it'll say that you're looking for a male, female, trans female, non-binary, other. I'm very thorough.
Yeah.
And then it says looking for non-creative partners, or non-romantic creative partners. So people that, and then you also, under the drop down of your relationship status, it has married. So you have options to pick that you're in a solid relationship and that you're really just looking there to find people to be creative with.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
You have that deep dive of a drop down.
Yes, you have to nowadays. It's a lot of options out there.
Well, yeah, I get it. I get
a lot
it,
of gender options.
But just, it kind of blows my mind that you have this wonderful, because I think that's where people understand me a lot, is because the creative side. But you really go that deep on your website for creativity people. Mm-hmm. Wow.
This site is launched because we're still pre-launch. We got about 2 weeks to go, and then it'll be launched officially. We're being in beta testing. The dating agent will then become a service that is offered on the online dating site, and my vision is to package that and offer it. I have some other online niche sites that are interested in using my services and offering it as a featured thing on their site, so people could hire me through that site to find matches on that site. So that's the vision for the dating agent.
That is, I just love it. Because I tell people, I have this podcast called Blending the Family, but one of my passions is business, and asking people, what was that aha moment, and hearing those aha moments, and sitting here listening to you, I'm like, oh my God, this is so cool. This is just, because like you said, this is your niche, and that's one of those things, somebody's going to sit back and go, why didn't I think of that?
I hope so.
And Tonya already took care of it for you.
It's been my dream to be that person who's finally ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But one of the things we talked about a couple weeks ago when we first met is, and I said, blending the family, and you're like, wow, I can tell you about unblending the family. Yeah. Your mom was married 5 times?
She's on her 5th marriage.
Fifth marriage. Fifth time's a charm?
Yes, it is a charm. Absolutely.
How many, and we don't call siblings step, we call them bonus.
Oh, I like that.
So how many bonus siblings do you have between these going on 5 marriages?
Do I have or have had?
Yes.
Oh boy, let's see.
Wow. Do you need to take your shoes off to count as well?
Yeah, I know. I'm running out of fingers here. I believe it's been 12. But I haven't met all of them.
That's a reality show right there. I'm pitching it to you, Tonya.
But that's on my dad and my mom's side. So my dad is also remarried with stepkids.
How many times has Dad been married?
Just once. He just remarried the one time. Yes, and I have 2 stepbrothers.
And do you hang out with them, or?
Just on family holidays, when we go there for Christmas and whatnot. We text occasionally. But we were all adults when that happened, so...
Okay.
Yeah.
But, I mean, do you guys... I mean, especially, again, I'm coming from a comedian mentality. Do you write jokes about that? Mom being on 5th?
Absolutely. I had lots of jokes about my family dynamics when I was doing stand-up, for sure.
I mean, I don't know. Because my wife and I kid, we're on our 2nd, and we say, that's it.
Right.
That's enough. I mean, you see the finish line. And it's, for us, marriage number 2, but Mom wanted to keep going. Right.
Yeah, I have to give her an A in tenacity. My mom puts a capital T in tenacity, I should say. She just was like, damn it, I am going to find somebody who's going to love me the way I want. Just keep on trying.
Well, yeah.
Kept trucking around. So.
And what was, I mean, life like that, going through so many different marriages with your mom? And I will pull the Freudian thing, and what's your relationship like with your mom?
I was actually on the phone with her on the way here.
Excellent.
Inviting her to come to the Greeley Stampede in Greeley. I have
down.
2 extra tickets. Why don't you guys come out? So, yeah, they live in North Carolina, her and Paul, and the 2 of them are a great couple together. They seem very well fitted for each other, and he's a wonderful man. Truly. I even told my dad, asked me about him once, and I'm like, yeah, I think he's my favorite so far. And my dad's like, wait, what? And I'm like, oh, I mean, except for you two,
yeah,
of course.
Yeah, you're the top 3.
Yeah.
You know, Dad, top 3. I mean, you know, that check hasn't cleared yet, Dad, so we'll see if you'll make it to number 2.
But anyway, yeah, no, he's a great man. So the others were rocky in between. I mean, and very short. So there weren't a
height-wise
lot
or just marriage-wise?
Some might have been both. No, actually, I think all of them were pretty tall, except for maybe one. But they, you know, one was, let's see, I think 9 months, a year and a half, and 2 years. So pretty short and quick.
Wow.
Yeah.
Any of them pass away?
No.
Okay.
We might have wanted to kill them, but no, they didn't pass away.
Off the record. Totally off the record.
I'm pretty sure that was on the But anyway.
And so, this kind of brings me to my next question is, you're on your 2nd marriage.
Yes, and now I have stepkids.
I'm
thankful they are not like me.
Why do you say that?
Because
are you a mean? Were you mean with
No, I'm not. I've always been very considerate of people that have been brought into my life, for sure. But I totally understand what it's like to be on both sides.
Right.
So it's put me in a very interesting position now, finding that I have stepchildren. And sometimes I find that I kind of put on my own experience onto what their experience must be like, instead of just letting them have their own experience. I kind of project onto them.
But did you have any, trying to think of the word, other than, did you have any like walls going into marriage because of seeing what your parents went through ahead of time, going, on one side of the wall looking at, I don't want to get married, Or on the other side, looking at marriage going, I'm going to be one and done. I'm going to prove that, because that was me. That was me. Is that when I got married the first time, I wanted to prove to myself that this is it. You know, my parents got divorced, so I'm not getting divorced. And 6 years later.
So it's kind of interesting because I grew up in Mayberry. I mean, in this idyllic little town with only 800 people. My mom and dad were best friends. Never saw them fight. Never saw them be disrespectful. Always thought they had a phenomenal relationship and always felt very secure and safe as a child growing up. And they separated, I believe I was 19. You know, and I was just getting toward the end of college and all of that. And so it was really pulling the rug out from under. Like, we just kind of never saw it coming. All of a sudden they're getting divorced and we're like, what the hell happened to her? So it really took us a shock. But thankfully they were able to, whatever emotions or things they were going through, they hid them really well from my brother and I, which I think is why I never felt like relationships weren't worth investing in. I always felt like they were positive. But
that could be a negative thing, because my wife tells me that she never really saw her parents argue, and she talks about how that could be a hindrance because you're not open to communication, or you don't see a dialogue of an argument between adults. You see it hidden, and you don't get to see the process of arguing.
Well, let me reframe that then. When I say I didn't see them arguing, I mean I never saw them like screaming and yelling cuss names and all that. I've certainly seen them have disagreements, but in a very constructive way. So they were able to communicate and have discussions, at least from my perspective. Now, you know, years later, I'm recognizing that maybe not all was as great as I thought it was between them. But, you know, I felt like I came out of that with a pretty strong ability to be able to communicate. And interestingly enough, I ended up getting my master's in alternative dispute resolution. And that's how I ended up doing the dating agent, was I started doing mediations for domestic cases.
Oh, wow.
Because I'm so good at conflict resolution. But I hated having people separate and move their stuff apart, so I decided to go the other route and bring people together instead.
That is true with the whole dating. That makes sense now.
Yes. So that's how I kind of transitioned into the dating agent from doing mediation. But in any case, I feel like I did learn to communicate through all that. I think you asked me about my feelings around the relationship piece. So the first person after my dad, we were like, okay, she's getting a second chance. You know, that's fine. The third person, who was the next door neighbor, we were like, okay, something new. Maybe this will be fine. When the fourth person came along, she called and asked me to meet her out at a restaurant. She brought this guy in. They had known each other for only 3.5 weeks and had met online. And she announced that they were getting married. And I flipped. I made the biggest scene in the middle of this restaurant.
Awesome.
I started screaming and pounding the table and being like, what the heck I used profanity, and I was just like, this is ridiculous. You don't know what you're doing. You're irresponsible. You're immature. You need to learn to be in a real relationship. There's no rush to this. I don't understand why you're doing this again. This is ridiculous. I didn't get invited to the wedding.
Hard to believe. Not even officiating the wedding.
Not even officiating. Which is why I never met any of my bonus family from that relationship. And they lasted about 1.5 years. So.
And did you inside of you go, haha, told you?
No, my mom was really devastated because she really was crazy about this person. And so I felt horrible for her, you know, because it was a huge loss for her. But then it taught her, she took a lot of time and didn't date anybody for a long time, you know, for several years. And then I think she healed herself where she was ready to meet the right person, which I think Paul is really the right person for her.
And not to pick on, and I'm sure if I met your mom, I'd give her a big hug. I'm a hugger, that's why. And again, not to pick on your mom, but do you think that after that was number 4, right? And going from 4 to number 5, that maybe after her and your dad divorced, what was the time frame between that and her marrying again? Do you remember?
Well, she actually was in a long-term relationship with this man for 6 years in between their divorce and her next marriage. But they never got married.
But do you think that maybe if Mom had taken a break after divorcing your dad and maybe just finding, I guess, herself, that maybe... It's hard to play that what-if game, and I hate the what-if game.
It is a hard game.
But do you think that she would have not gone through all these marriages?
It's possible, or she might not have made the experiences she needed to make to learn from them in order to find the right person.
Because I look at... and it's funny hearing it that it's a woman here, but I always see from the guy point of view that after they divorce, that they have to be in a relationship. They have to. And it's like,
guys
no.
like to jump back in.
Yeah. And go take time for yourself. Go, what is your passion? Go find a hobby. Go do something. Because my life lesson after my divorce was that I took my relationship with my son and the time for granted, because I thought I'm going to be married one time, that's it, moving on was never a thought. And that was my focus, was spending my time with my son. And again, I go back, coaching dads, coaching men, that's one of the first things I say to them. Get away. Go find something. So I find it just odd that your mom, it's like I think Mickey Rooney went through 8 marriages.
Oh yeah, well,
Elizabeth Taylor, right.
Actually, one of my best jokes that I used to run on stage all the time, they did this psychological study that showed that women are happiest and feel most complete when they stay single, and men are most happiest and feel most complete when they're married. Which means that men are really happy when they're making us fucking miserable.
I think it's part of our nature. Nature? One of those. Yeah. What was your thought about marriage at first?
So, I mean, my mom always had this belief that the right person is out there and that true love exists at first sight and all of that. So I feel like I had a little part of that. I got married at a very young age to somebody who I believe was my soulmate at that time. And we got married at age 21. We met when I was 19. He was an exchange student here in this country. And came over and we totally hit it off. And I felt like he was the absolute one. And I think part of that as well was my parents had filed for divorce at that point. So I was searching to replace that piece that was being taken away. And so I moved to England, lived there for 2 years. We got married when I was 21. And we stayed married. Well, we stayed together for about 10 years. And then we outgrew each other. Because who knows who you are when you're 21.
Yeah.
So we kind of diverged and went in opposite directions and dissolved our marriage very amicably. Mm-hmm. He's still my friend on Facebook.
Aww.
He's been remarried. I think he's on his 3rd marriage now, actually, from what I hear. But we had a positive marriage.
Was it opposites attract on that one? Or were you both very similar creative-wise?
It's hard to say. We were definitely I was probably more similar to him then than I am now.
Okay.
So I wasn't doing all the things that I do now, but we taught ballroom dancing together. We both did that, but he was an accountant. So he was sort of in that side of the brain, and I'm in the opposite side of that brain.
See, so it is somewhat of an opposite because, I mean, I'm always fascinated by those types of studies of right brain versus left brain and the creativity side. And I got into a discussion with somebody recently, and he's like, because he is very left brain and I'm very right brain, and we were talking about how do we communicate because we are on total opposites of the spectrum. And he said, we have to figure out some common ground, and, you know, we're going to get there, but we just got to figure out how to get there. And so I just find it, again, fascinating that you married somebody who has that, the numbers mentality. What was that life? I mean, what was he funny?
No. He was English.
Well, you can stop right there. Yeah. Did he cook, and was it really bad food too?
I don't recall him doing much. We actually did cook, I think, a bit together. We learned to be better cooks together. Mm-hmm. When we first started out, it was like opening a can of peas and mushy peas in England, and maybe getting a hot pot, whatever. You know, like a little pot.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we kind of grew in the cooking area together and started to be more organic cooks and stuff when we moved back to this country. But the thing that really didn't work in a relationship wasn't so much the right-left brain thing, because, I mean, I'm married to a software engineer now, so
right.
Obviously, but a very creative and funny one, as you've seen.
Don is funny. Don is funny. And like we were talking earlier at the International Speech Contest, wrong audience. That was just, I loved his speech because I thought it was very creative. Mm-hmm. It was very thought-provoking. And that's why I said to you earlier, I said that's why it kind of reminded me of a combination of Seinfeld and Dennis Miller.
Right.
Because it was one of those, and I'm looking at the audience going, they don't get it. They're missing a great opportunity here, and they just don't get it.
Yeah. Yeah. He's a great speechwriter. He also is a great speech coach.
Hint, hint.
But he's a very good... He writes speeches far better than I do. For sure. But I think the difference with Mark and my relationship, what was really challenging was being from two different cultures. And you would think the English and the American culture would be more similar, seeing as we kind of speak the same language.
Well, they speak the Queen's English.
In some ways.
Right.
But it was very hard adjustment for me living over there. And I don't know. I can't speak for his adjustment living over here, but he moved back there, so I think he probably had the same experience.
Where do you guys live over there?
We lived in Oxford.
Ooh. Mm-hmm. Hello, we lived in Oxford.
I went to Oxford Brookes University.
Oh, so you are one of those smart people.
Yes, it's not part of the Oxford University.
Oh, well, we can pretend it was.
It actually used to be called Oxford Polytechnic when I lived there. I think they changed the name just to confuse people.
And it worked, apparently.
It totally does. Everybody's like, wow, you're one of those Ivy League people. Yeah, well, we had some ivy on the buildings there for sure.
Yeah. Well,
it's very damp.
But that's why I love being a Cub fan, because there's ivy at Wrigley Field.
Right.
And that's... I have no idea where I'm going with that.
They're an Ivy League.
Yeah, sure. How old are Don's kids?
So they are 20 and 22.
And what was that like when you two first started dating?
Well, that was, I mean,
do they live
Eric
here?
was about 14 and Maya was 17. And 17 is hard for anybody.
Right.
Even without having to deal with your parents, separating their homes and all of that. So it was a little rough at first because they were going through that period of having their parents, get officially divorced. They weren't living together at that point anyway, but it's traumatizing when your parents, even though it sounds like the kids were kind of saying, you guys need to do this.
Right.
It's still, as a child, traumatizing to think that your parents don't belong together.
But the good thing is you could relate to them because, as you said, you were 19, mm-hmm. and, again, you could relate to what they were going on.
It's a ghost dog. What are you doing?
Louie, you're nuts. Oh my gosh, Louie. Opening and closing the door. I've never seen a dog do that.
That's weird.
But with their 2 boys, how did you build your relationship with them?
A boy and a girl.
Oh, boy and a girl.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So how did you build your relationship with them?
So I just mostly tried to be a friend. You know, I'm their friend. They have a mom. She lives here in Boulder. They're very close with her. They mostly live with her. And they'll come out and go, you know, out to dinner with us and come over for dinner or whatever. We used to do game nights and stuff on occasion. But mostly I just try and stay in that friend role and remember what it was like to be on the other side.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's still an adjustment period for me, particularly with my dad, because that dad-daughter bond
It's huge.
is huge.
Yeah.
You know, and Dawn and Maya have that same bond, you know, so I try not to step in between it. But then I find myself having, you know, some jealousy around that because their relationship is so different from my relationship with my dad.
Right.
You know, which has been challenged on and off throughout the years.
Is there a different relationship?
And,
is there a different relationship between the boy and the girl with you?
it's different. I wouldn't say that one is better or... I feel like the hardest challenge for me, I think that his kids have been probably more accepting of me, and I've probably struggled more with accepting them.
Is it a jealousy thing?
I don't think it's a jealousy thing. I've never had kids, so I don't understand that parent-child bond, you know, so... Like last night, Eric calls his dad and is like, "Dad, can you order me a pizza?" He's down at college in Northern Arizona University. "Can you order me a pizza and pay for it?" And I'm like,
why can't you do
it? And he does. And I don't, from my perspective, not having my own children and not understanding that desire to take care of them and everything, I'm just like, he's 20 years old. Why didn't he go get a job? Like, what is this all about? And so I have to really work through it with myself and process a lot before, you know, I get involved or stick my foot in it. Because if I just open my mouth, I'll totally say the wrong thing all the time. Because my instinct is looking from an outside perspective at somebody with kids and wanting to judge about that, where I don't really have the perspective to be able to do that appropriately.
Right.
So that's the thing that that challenges me the most.
I see a whole stand-up right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's been so interesting because when our relationship first started, and Eric was 14 and Maya was 17, and Eric did live with us for a time when he was about 16 going on 17. What I've discovered about 17-year-olds is that for some reason that year of their lives, they're abducted by aliens and taken somewhere else, and you have this being that isn't human anymore for an entire year. That hates everything and everybody.
Me.
Or you do not have a 17-year-old yet?
Well, we did. We have 20, 15, and 14.
Oh, good luck.
Yeah.
What I suggest is pack all your stuff, leave, and come back when they're 18.
I would love to. That's why.
But literally, it changed. Like the day they turn 17, they turn into these people that you cannot even communicate with. They're miserable and angry. And then the day they turn 18, they're like, "Oh, hi.
Yeah.
Here I am. I'm back again."
Well, I was talking to a school teacher, and she teaches sophomores. And she said that is where a lot of the boys just flip out. That's where they start changing, is their sophomore. And my son is going to be a freshman next year, and I'm like freaking out going, one more year. Yeah.
Once those hormones kick in.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a lot of adjustment. So I tried to be very aware of that process going on, you know. So poor Maya was 17. She was going through that. I had been introduced into their lives. Her parents were getting divorced. She was being forced to move from her childhood home. All this stuff. I mean, that's a lot to take on when you're also going through all those changes.
Right.
You know, from an emotional and physical level. But it's just what's really excited me is seeing this sort of progression of our relationship throughout the years. And now she's 22. I feel like we have a good relationship. You know, she's constantly saying, oh, I have this great book you have to read, or she'll text me and ask me questions or call me for advice or whatever it is. And so we have a friendship, and that's really what I wanted. And that's so important.
And where do you think you learned that? Or was it maybe an observation that you saw? And the reason why I ask is because when my mom got remarried to my bonus dad, Dan, he came in with the same attitude as yours, Tonya, and that was, I'm not. And you see the opposite, and I see it more with the dads and the men, is that it's my way or the highway. You're either going to, you know, listen to me or get out. And Dan came in as just like you, in a friend type relationship, and that was my philosophy going into this relationship with the girls. Was I wasn't going to try and replace their dad.
Right.
Especially the older one, Betsy, has got a great relationship with her dad. I'm not there to replace their dad. Just like their mom isn't there to replace my son Connor's mom. Where do you think you figured that out?
Well, I think, actually, I can give a lot of credit to my stepmom, my bonus mom.
There you go.
And she is somebody that when I have struggled with stuff, I've picked up the phone and called her and been like, what did you do when it was me doing this?
Exactly.
Like, how did this work for you? And she'll laugh and be like, okay, you need to, like, back it up. And, like, you know, just take a chill pill. Like, you know, and she'll remind me of things and, like, give me a reality check. And she's very right-brained. She's an accountant. And we're born like 2 days apart, so we're both Virgos, so very, you know, structured and...
Same year?
No, not the same
year.
No.
Wow.
No, not that type of 2 days. But, you know, our birthdays are very close together and stuff, so we have that Virgo. Actually, my stepmother, or my bonus mother, I gotta remember that. Bonus mother, my bonus in-law, bonus... What would you call your bonus? My brother's, my stepbrother's
bonus
wife.
Bonus brother's wife.
Yeah, okay, his bonus, my sister-in-law. She's my sister-in-law.
There you go.
Whatever. We're born on the same day. I think our birthdays are the same day. So we got 3 of us all like within 2 days. And we all get along really well.
The 3 of you.
Yeah, so yeah. I feel like, I mean, my Sandy, she was very supportive. Or she, when what am I saying? When my dad and her first got married, those first couple of years were rough because I felt very like there was some competition.
Well, right, naturally,
you know?
Yeah.
And I would go down there, and she worked a lot of hours. She's like a little bit of a workaholic, so I would get there, and she would be gone to work by the time I got up in the morning, and she wouldn't come back until after I'd gone to bed. And so I always felt like she didn't want a relationship with me, and that was really hard. And then there would be little moments where I'd get my dad like a hat, and she'd be like, well, he doesn't wear hats. And I'd be like, my dad's always wearing hats.
Right.
And so a little bit of that going on to kind of like find our footing and figure out what place we fit into this new life. But now we have a really great relationship. Like I said, you know, she's the person that I call if I'm like, how do I deal with my stepkids? Like, how do I?
But how did your relationship with her change? What was that turning point?
I feel like, you know, they live far away, so their relationship started when I was already married to my first husband. So that was kind of awkward because it took, I think, longer for us to develop a relationship just because of geographically we weren't in the same place.
Exactly.
I think what really changed for our relationship was, I mean, I've gone down there a lot of Christmas and holidays. She's always made me feel very included. She always introduced me as her daughter, you know, so that was always nice. It made me feel like she thought of me that way and not just as this is my husband's kid.
And you know what?
I have to deal with, you know.
Kudos to her, because that was, you know, again, that's where we kind of took the step versus bonus, because we wanted to make this a positive transition.
Yeah.
And one of the things was becoming going from this is my bonus daughter to now we do the same thing. Even my wife says, this is our son. And I always say, this is my daughter, this is my other daughter, or what have you. Because I think we, as a society, we have to label everything. And I said, I don't want to do that. We'll start small with the bonus, and we get the same reaction. I was doing a TV interview, and I said the word bonus daughter, and the host, actually a good friend of mine, Bill Corbett, what did you just say? I said, bonus. He goes, what does that mean? I said, it always reminded me, and I kid about trying to explain what blending the family is, and especially to the generations that have seen the Brady Bunch. I said, that was the quintessential blended family. You have a mom, 3 daughters, you have a dad, 3 sons, and now you have a blended family. Like, oh, I get it. But there was an episode of the Brady Bunch where Peter said, my stepsister and Carol, the mom, said, the only steps in this house lead upstairs. That is your sister. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I just had this epiphany going, that TV show, even though it was a TV show, they got it. They understood it way before their time. Exactly. And hearing you talk about your bonus mom, I'm going, she got it. Yeah. And again, huge kudos to her because of removing that labeling. And I hate when you have those situations where this is my stepdad, because I've always had that. It's a horror movie. The evil, stepdad or stepmom ends up killing everybody. And that's why I really wanted to take out that word, that step word, because I always had a negative connotation towards it. So, I mean, it's great that you were able to learn from her and be able to see, your own personal growth with your kids.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think that she has helped me with that. But there's been a lot of, it's hard too. Yeah, she has her own kids. They, one of my stepbrother Scott lives very close to them, so they're very close. It's been particularly hard, I think, on my brother, because my dad has this bad tendency of calling my brother and telling him how awesome it is that Scott lives near them, and how much fun they have, and how they bought a boat together, and how they spend all their weekends together, and so my brothers felt very isolated from the family because of that, right? And kind of like the outcast. And I get a little bit of that as well. There's definitely a hierarchy in the family. Right. Of who's most important and then who's secondary. And I want to not have that, and I think that's part of it too. I don't want to have my stepkid or bonus kids have that experience. Right. I want them to always feel comfortable and like they're supported, and that I love them, and that I'll be there for them as a friend.
What's your relationship with your dad like?
My dad and I have been very close most of my life. But I have to put the effort out to be close. Okay. I hear horror stories. I ran a shelter in Boston before moving out here. Holy cow! Just to add another layer to my career path.
What kind of shelter was it?
Emergency shelter for families, with 150 families and 14 case managers that I was in charge of. One of the largest scatter site programs in Boston. Wow. But yeah, I would say that the experience I've had have certainly helped me in that sort of community. And knowing how to do mediation and restorative justice and all those things.
I want to go back because I'm always fascinated by how did you get into, or how was that first stand up? Was it did you start, I guess, I don't know, the traditional way and do open mic and then work your way up? I mean, what was that? Did somebody push you and say, "Oh my gosh, Tonya, you are so funny. You need to be a comedian"?
Yeah, it was more of that actually. So I have this crazy career path. So this is just another career that I was doing. I was teaching workshops to high school students as part of Career Education Corporation owned a college called Macintosh. It's one of those cheesy for-profit schools that live to, like, screw kids, basically. Yes, I said that on the air. So they're closed now, thankfully. But in any case, I worked for them, and they would send me into schools to teach workshops to kids as a way to recruit them.
What age? Like high school?
Mostly sophomore, junior, and senior. So I would go into the classes. I would do my little crazy speeches, to try and engage the students. And so I taught topics like how to choose a career, how to not listen to messages you get from your parents that are messing up your life, how to, I don't know, how to,
when your parents tell you, I can just picture
skills.
you though, hold on, going, when your parents tell you, don't do drugs, don't listen to them. Break out the crack pipe and just go for it.
Yeah.
Was that part of your curriculum?
No, it wasn't quite like that. but actually, most kids came up and they'd be like, that was the best speech I've ever heard. But anyway, so I'd run these workshops, and then they would have to fill out cards at the end of the workshops with all their information so that they could be telemarketed for the rest of their natural-born lives, regardless of where they were planning to go to school. So through that experience, I've learned very quickly that to engage a high school audience, you have to freaking work your ass off and be very, very funny.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so I just pulled in and I taught public speaking as well. That was another one. I did just take all the stories of my childhood, anything I could think of, and just like tell them these stories as part of this thing. And they would just be like, with their eyes like just glued on me and laughing, and they'd come up to me at the end and be like, you should be a stand-up comedian, you are so funny. And so at one point I was watching Lewis Black, who
oh my god,
Lewis Black,
love Lewis Black too.
I have a picture of him and I together at a party.
Oh, so jealous. Can you call him right now? Do you have his phone number?
No,
do you have a text?
I don't know him like that. But I did get a photo with him. I was very excited. I'm like, you're the reason I went into comedy. He's like, yeah, I've heard it all before. Whatever, lady. So anyways, I was watching and I was thinking, I can be as funny as that.
Mm-hmm.
No, I can't really. But it inspired me. I'm like, I want to write comedy, and these kids say I'm really funny and that I should take my stories and make them comedy. So I ended up going and finding a comedy class that I had heard about. I asked everybody I knew, and they directed me, and I took this comedy class at the Portland Comedy Connection with this person, Tim Farrell, who was teaching the comedy class. And that's how I got started. They taught you how to write. You did rip and reads, and then you'd do a show at the end, and it was part of the...
Explain rip and read.
Okay, a rip and read is basically you write a joke on a piece of paper, rip it out, and you go read it on stage. And it's the first time. So it's basically reading right out of your notebook. And then people critique it and say, yeah, that's funny, or it's not funny, or...
Did you find me funny at Toastmasters?
Yes, I thought you were hilarious.
Okay, so I had to ask that. just for my own ego.
You were very amusing. You look very comfortable up there.
It's funny because I am such an introvert these days.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But enough about me. Let's talk about me more. What was the first night? That first time getting on stage at the Comedy Connection was like an adrenaline rush. It's like a drug. You get totally hooked. Yeah.
All these people sitting there. And of course, that's like friends and family that they pull in. So you got a pretty receptive audience. It's very much more like Toastmasters than the reality.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, you were so good, Tonya.
Everybody really walks out of there thinking, I'm a great stand-up comedian. And then 6 months later, you're wanting to cut your own throat.
Yeah.
No. On stage, because that would only be funny.
Yeah.
No. So after that, because we were connected to the Comedy Connection, they gave us stage time in the open mic nights. So we were able to get up in front of, and they packed the house there, 100 to 200 people. And you would just get up and do your 5 minutes and get off the stage.
Do you watch Peter Holmes' show?
I don't.
Because I picture what you're saying is very similar to his show, Crashing, on HBO.
I've heard about that.
And it's him, and I'm assuming that a lot of this is his real life, talking about going to those first open mics and getting that first 5 minutes to now you've got 10 minutes, and now you're getting 20 minutes. And building, like you said, building the writing to be able to have enough material to do 10, 15.
It takes years to build it up. So I had about 40 minutes that worked after 6 years of writing and performing 7 days a week on stage.
What was your signature bit?
My mom for my birthday gave me this green jacket, and I became the girl in the green jacket, I guess. But she got it at this sample sale, I guess. It was like this really boutique jacket in Maine, and gave it to me, and I was like, she thinks I'm going to wear this.
In public?
It was so ugly. It was like, it looked like moss had grown on it. Like, I'm not even kidding. It was like a 70s green shag carpeting with like this sort of camouflage leopard print on the inside, and that kind of showed through the green mossy stuff. And so I would get on stage and do like a whole thing about, with the jacket on, and be the Swamp Thing and the moss growing on it, and tell people like, I have a whole kilo of weed hidden in my jacket if you want to go get wide after the show,
Right.
And everybody absolutely loved it. And that became like my shtick. Everybody was like, the girl in the green jacket, yeah. So.
And that goes to like a business question. So, as a comedian, you really had to brand yourself.
Yeah, you do have to brand yourself.
Would you say that was your early branding?
I suppose, I think my name was really my branding, the Dalhaus. You can't really go wrong with a name like the Dalhaus in comedy, and being a cute blonde goes a long way too, I suppose. But I think that was part of the reason I kind of got out of comedy, was the branding. Like, I never felt like I got comfortable with my voice or what voice it was. Like, you try on so many different hats to try and find that shtick. And if you look at really good comics, like Lewis Black's like the angry white guy, right?
Yeah.
You have Eddie Izzard, who's the English guy.
Yeah.
Eddie Izzard, who's like the surreal, religious, like... can pretty much take anything political and make it funny without offending anybody guy. I mean, Lisa Lampanelli.
Yeah.
Angry white woman who her whole shtick is insulting everybody. Doesn't matter what race or color you are.
I love the black man.
Yeah.
I love listening to her.
So, trying to find your voice takes many, 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 many years. And I felt like I went through so many transitions. When you're constantly transitioning in your own life, it's hard to find that voice. I feel like now if I went back into it where I'm settled and I have a husband and now I'm a married woman in her middle age, like that, it'd be easy to brand myself than being the single person who's single. Now I'm in a relationship. Now I'm single. Now I'm married. Now I'm divorced. Now I'm single. And a lot of my shtick back then was on being single. I had so many jokes about being single that I might be able to work them in now, being the dating agent.
Right.
But it would be a lot harder.
But was that a crowded space for being a woman and hearing that over and over again?
Yeah. You get categorized. You're fat, you're thin, you're black, you're white, you're Jewish, that's how you end up branding yourself.
Do you miss it?
Mike Kaplan's made a great, his ability in comedy is that he's a linguistics major. That's what he has his degree in.
Really?
And his whole comedy is about using linguistics to write jokes and the power of the language, of English language. So I remember one of his older jokes he used to do on stage, but I don't think he does anymore, but I think you should bring it back, Mike. He'd say he was driving along a cliff and he saw a sign that said falling rocks. So he got out and threw himself off the cliff and he's like, falling doesn't rock, falling sucks. It's like...
That's brilliant.
I thought it was hysterical.
Brilliant.
I'm like, why did you write that out of your set?
But do you miss it? Do you miss, and not as much as, I guess, more of the performing piece than the environment piece, if that makes sense? Do you miss stand-up?
I think I grew out of it. So I got to a point where I was starting to middle a little more on stage. And
explain middle, because I was fascinated by that.
Becoming a middle act.
Right.
So when you get started, first you're an opener, which
right.
means you get your 5 minutes of fame. Then you get to host shows, which means you're opening the show and then doing little bits in between everybody to bring the audience back up. And then you become a middle act where you get to do sort of your anywhere from 20 to 40 minutes. And then you become the feature act, and once you're a feature act, you're doing all the big shows, and you're doing an hour and a half, or whatever of comedy. You know, so it kind of goes in line with the time zone, too, because it takes, you know, a good 6 years to get a half-hour of comedy. You know, it takes 10 years to get an hour of comedy.
Right.
So, you know, I started to get more middle acts. I was what considered a clean comic, so most of my jokes could run clean, which gets you a lot more gigs. People think that being a comic means doing dirty jokes.
Right.
And talking about sex and talking about drugs, and those don't actually get you the big shows. You get a big show from being clean, because then you can work on radio, you can work at charities, you can work at kids' functions, you can do all of that stuff. So I was known as a clean act, and I was starting to get a good reputation for that. And then at some point, I realized that my choice was to either get on the road and start going from club to club to club to club like everybody else, or doing something different. And I didn't really imagine myself doing that lifestyle as a single female, sleeping in seedy hotels and being on the road 360 days a year. Just didn't sound appealing, because I really wanted a relationship and I wanted to find love and settle down. So I went and decided to run an emergency shelter instead. I was like, the worst choice ever. No.
Yeah, because I don't see the humor in that.
No, it sucked me humor dry for the time I was doing that.
But again, I should have gone in. I tried to go into psychology, but that's all over my head. But do you think, and I guess I'm playing armchair psychologist, but do you think that was the extreme you needed, going from the world of humor to the world of seriousness, to maybe open up some other piece in your life?
I think so. My life seems to be about transitions. I've never had like a really clear course ahead of me. It's just been kind of like, oh, well, this looks fun and interesting. I'll try this, and that works into that, and that turns into this. Kind of like the mediation has turned into the dating thing. So after I'd become a stand-up comedian, I was working in advertising, and I decided I could not make another cold call in my life. I just couldn't do it.
See, I would say, because you have that natural humor, that cold calling would be fun for you.
It wasn't. I had gotten to a point where I'd been doing it for so long, I just didn't want to do it anymore. I was miserable. I was selling advertising for TV.
Right. Air. So
I got my boss to lay me off so I could collect unemployment, which he generously did.
You can't fire me, I quit, but here's a severance package. Thank you.
He laid me off. I ended up getting I'd gotten in this huge car accident, so that kind of messed things up for a bit. And then I ended up on this show, Diet.com, and I was their featured personality as a stand-up comedian for like 10 weeks, working with a trainer and doing all this stuff. And then I up and left and went to Europe for like 2 months and just traveled around and soaked in life. So I came back and got back home into Massachusetts about January 1st with no job, no money, no idea what I was going to do. And a friend of mine called and he was like, well, maybe you should, sell real estate. You can get your real estate license. And I was like, yeah, that sounds good. I'll sell something tangible. I'm selling air. It's got to be easier to sell a house, right? So I got my real estate license in Massachusetts, started doing rental properties, and I kept getting all these calls from people saying, I don't know what to do. I have my kids. We're three, of us were sleeping in my car. I can't get anybody to rent to me. And I'd call my landlords and be like, this person needs a place to rent. No, we won't rent to them. Just tell them to go away. Don't answer their calls. We don't want to rent to any welfare people or anybody who's, poor or has kids like that, or any, single mom. It was just and I was like, this is horrible. Like, somebody's got to help these people. This is ridiculous. So I started doing research to see, how I could help them, and I was like, I'm going to start a company to help these people. And then when I started doing research, I realized that, you have HUD and all these programs and stuff in Massachusetts that do help these people. So I was like, I want to do this. Sounds like a cause that I could take up. So I sent a blanket email to everybody I knew and said, hey, I need to know somebody who works with people who are homeless, like homeless families. And sure enough, one of my friends said, hey, I have a friend who's a director of a homeless program. So 2 days later, I had an informational interview, and 3 days later, I got hired as the program manager.
With zero experience.
No social work experience. The only thing I can do is sell, and I can sell myself like crazy.
That's fantastic, though.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. Because, you go through life with the expectation you have to have this experience. You have to have... my resume is right over here. Somewhere in this pile. There it is. See? So here's my resume of all this experience, and everything I want to do isn't part of this.
Yeah.
So your story, that's fantastic. And how long did you do that?
3 years. 24/7. On call. It was brutal.
When are you going to write this book? Because you're living and embodying what people would call the American dream, in my opinion, because you have taken all these risks. You've gone to, a shelter with zero experience, but you were able to sell yourself to get that job. You stood on stage night after night after night, and I'm sure you got heckled at least once or twice and dealt with that. I mean, you really are. I mean, that is the embodiment of the American dream of just moving forward.
Yeah, I don't know what much of a dream it is, but I think it's helpful. I was just on a podcast actually about who you need in your circle to support you, as you go through life and as you have a business. Like, what kind of supports do you need? And that support network, I mean, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing now without my husband. Just not financially or emotionally or anything. I mean, he's a huge supporter. He totally takes care of me, takes care of the bills, and says, yeah, I want you to have your dream, like, live it, So I wouldn't probably be doing, I mean, I might be doing it, but it wouldn't be coming together as quickly as it has been if it wasn't for him being able to push me and say, you can do this. And my parents have pretty much been instrumental in that, too. I mean, both of them I would say, my mom particularly has a very entrepreneurial spirit. She started her own businesses before. And both my parents have always been like, you can do anything that you want. Which I thank them for and also criticize them for, because I'm like, if you had just told me to be a veterinarian, I wouldn't have had this problem. I would be in a job right now.
Why couldn't you put the pressure on me? Be a lawyer, a doctor. I
used to say I could do anything. Now I have to do everything to see if I can do anything, right?
Well, I love it because I always quote Pastor Joel Osteen, and he always says, if you're the smartest one in your circle, you need a bigger circle.
Right.
And, I'm always looking for people to help me, get into my circle.
Oh, and then I'm hoping to make paleo bread and sell it. That'd be my next business once this is rolling.
Always
looking ahead.
Because I read on the other website, the dating agent, you've got food allergies?
Yes.
Or what's paleo bread? And I'm guessing it's like a piece of paper.
No, it's not. That's why I'm going to sell it, because people aren't even going to believe that it's as good as it is. It's my secret recipe. I'm allergic to all the things that people in this country would die if they thought they were allergic to. I'm allergic to wheat and gluten, sugarcane, and yeast.
So no soda.
So that pretty much eliminates almost
all
anything that you find in supermarkets.
Yeah.
It's not just a vegetable or a meat.
Yeah.
So through that experience, I've learned how to bake and make pretty much everything from scratch at home. My own ketchup, my own mayonnaise, my own bread, my own bagels, my own cookies. Everything has to be made from scratch because I can't have any of the normal ingredients. And even all the gluten-free products on the market pack everything with sugarcane and yeast, so I can't eat those.
And you're out of luck on that.
Right.
So
my bread is pretty much allergen-free.
It's got to be difficult going to a restaurant.
Yes, incredibly. Yeah.
I mean, other than, salad.
Usually I get, I can ask for like a meat with nothing on it. Like, don't put anything on it, no marinades, no sauces or spices or anything. So, I mean, I think the thing that I learned the most in doing stand-up is to believe in myself. Comedy is subjective, just like dating is subjective. Not everybody's going to like you.
Right.
And so just understanding that and not taking it personally and brushing it off and going on to the next stage was the lesson I learned, I would say.
Does that come from your parents?
Yeah, my dad was probably my total role model when it came to stage performance.
Was your dad funny?
My dad's hilarious. And he was a middle school principal, 5th and 6th and 7th and 8th grades, so you have to be hilarious to be in that position. That's the worst ages ever. And he would always, for their talent shows, he was in all their talent shows, all the graduation speeches. He would go in costume and do all this crazy stuff and play his guitar and sing and make up funny songs. And he's always the entertainer. I even remember when I was in high school, he came to an English literature workshop that they were doing for the high school students as a guest speaker, and came out on stage dressed in blue long johns with a big P on his chest, which sounds really dirty, but it wasn't. And it gets dirtier, and like a 15-foot long pencil that he'd made out of.
Why, yes, I do have a pencil in my pants, and thanks for asking.
Yes. And he was super pencil man. He had like a cape and everything. And I was like, at the time, being like 17, I was like, oh my God. Like,
Dad, you're embarrassing me.
Embarrassed. What are you doing? But that was my dad.
But
so yeah,
it sounds like he was a
humor.
Frustrated, creative person.
No, I wouldn't say he was frustrated. He loved doing stuff like that. He was very creative as a parent. We were always making things and doing things and playing games and yeah.
With Funny People Meet, again, comedians, writers,
improvers, film
directors,
clowns, mimes, performance artists, talent agents.
I was going to say, it must be rough trying to call a mime, but I guess you can do everything through email with a mime.
They can hear, they just don't talk.
Sorry, it's the peer pressure of trying to be funny around you. So, I just picture a mime picking up the phone, going,
exactly.
I'm a mime, I don't talk. Why are you calling me?
Exactly. Well, maybe mimes won't work on my site. I'll take that one off.
Well, again, they can use email.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's a place to post videos on my site, too, so people can promote themselves and put up their own video clips. But no nudie bits. I put that on there. I did it with an English accent.
You did?
I wrote it in an English accent. No nudie bits.
Oh, gosh. See, I love hanging around creative people because then I start thinking about other things too, going, oh, that'd be so funny when you log on to your website, that's the first thing you see. Hello, I'm Tonya. No nudie bits.
Yeah, exactly.
Wearing the green jacket. I want you wearing the green jacket, saying in a British accent, no nudie bits, and then just, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, what I do is I say no nudie bits, and then I take the green jacket off with nothing underneath. That would be funny.
Oh my gosh.
Of course, I'd probably scare all my customers away, so I don't know, that might not be a good idea, but anyway.
Then
that's where my mind goes.
Then you've got a totally different website now. I don't know. See, I'm gonna end this like how we started. How do you want to end this, Tonya?
How do I want to end this? Well, it's been great talking with all of you out there. Thank you for listening. That's a wrap.
Peace out, dog.
Thank you for listening to Blending the Family. Don't worry. Yeah, we know. Tommy's not funny.